Welcome to today's episode of The Lindsey Show. Today's show is all about conflict. We all have it. We've all been in fights with our spouses, with our children, with our parents, with our friends. But how do we become better at communicating even amidst conflict? First up today, I am going to be speaking with Jonathan Miller, who helps people to become more powerful in their communication techniques when they are in conflict. After that, I will share with you some of the things that I learned about a book that really changed my life called Crucial Conversations, because I faced a moment where I had a choice, either get better or stay exactly where I am. And I knew exactly where I was not the right place to be because I was constantly assaulted with conflict. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Lindsey Show, a podcast that helps you find fulfillment amidst chaos. On this show, I interview thought leaders, doctors, creatives, spiritual gurus, and game changers who inspire you to pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Jonathan Miller is a speaker, facilitator, and leadership coach who helps successful people become more powerful in the face of conflict. He believes in the power of being able to hone your communication skills to better deal with conflicts and also transform people into powerful partners that serve both our businesses and our lives. His programs draw heavily on his extensive training in communication, including nonviolent communication, the Harvard Negotiation Project, and Landmark Worldwide, and so many more. He has also been heavily influenced by his own Vipassana meditation practice, of which he has spent more than 2,000 hours in silent Vipassana practice. Our conversation today is so enlightening in this moment where we're facing some challenges that were perhaps unexpected and how we can become better at dealing with conflict. Jonathan Miller, welcome to the Lindsey Show.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm thrilled to talk to you today because as I was going through the notes about this show, I realized how deeply personal what we're going to talk about today is. So back in the day, I got to a point where I was so consumed with anger and unprocessed childhood trauma that I basically could not have a conversation with anyone. And I had gone to pharmacy school. I'd done the 2 postdocs. I was as highly skilled, board certified. And I go to my first job interview and they tell me that I'm not getting the job because they found me to be rigid and inflexible. And I was like, oh crap, I have spent so many years trying to become this authoritative, highly employable person. And now I can't even have a conversation that puts people at ease and makes them think that I'd be good at a job. Fast forward a couple of years, and I am in my first job. Once again, this lack of being able to communicate rears its ugly head, and I get sent to a corporate communications coach. And I go kicking and screaming. Like, I was pissed. I did not want to go at all. But something switched in me, and I said, I am going to approach this, and I am going to pour myself into this entire process. And one of the books that the coach had me read was Crucial Conversations. And it forever changed my ability to have difficult conversations. So we all experience conflict. We have it in our home. We have it in our workplace. How do we train ourselves to become better at handling conflict?
I think the first step is, it's interesting. You had this moment where you were told you were rigid and inflexible and like unflexible. And then you had this thing where you were literally kicking and screaming about this corporate communication coach, right? And so that's interesting because that kind of attitude heading into being better around conflicts is not probably the best attitude to have, right? I think it really starts with a willingness to say, okay, maybe I'm not so great at having difficult conversations. And I'm willing to approach this with curiosity, with an open mind, with beginner's mind, and just be like, what is it that I can learn in this thing? I think that's the first and foremost. There needs to be that seed of awareness and that desire to want to actually take this on. Now, the funny thing about communication is it's just like anything. It's a practice, right? So you had this book that changed your life. I've also read lots of these books. I've done, seminars and webinars, and now I'm teaching this kind of stuff. So obviously, I've kind of embedded a lot of these practices into my life. And so now that I've practiced a lot more, I'm pretty good at having difficult conversations. Now, I still experience conflict. I still experience these difficult conversations, and oh boy, do I mess some of them up still. The thing is, I'm just very aware of how I can mess things up. So I have more opportunities to steer clear of that. So for our listeners here looking to kind of dive into this world of difficult conversations, to kind of recap what I said. The first is to recognize maybe I'm not so good at difficult conversations. Maybe it's possible that, growing up in school, growing up at home, I never learned how to have difficult conversations. None of us have. That's not a thing that's taught in schools. It's not a thing that we learn at home.
It doesn't come in the parental how to raise effective children guide that we all get when at birth,
I looked to that manual front and back, nothing there about difficult conversations, right? So the first step is recognizing, okay, listen, I don't know how to have difficult conversation. The only model I have is what I've seen around me. And all you need to do is flip on the TV and take a look at a news channel and see two people duking it out about two opposing opinions. It doesn't even matter what it's about. And you can see kind of the state of the nation in terms of difficult conversations. So recognizing that that's the case and a willingness to take that on. From there, there's limitless resources. You mentioned a great book, Crucial Conversations. I love nonviolent communication, difficult conversations. We'll talk about at the end, my podcast, the Mindful Communication Podcast. I have tons of guests who all develop their own communication systems and ways of handling these conflicts. So there's a plethora of resources there. And it starts with that seed of awareness and that desire to actually make that change.
So I want to go back to one of the things that you said a moment ago, which is you are now aware of the ways that you mess up conflicting conversations. What are some of the ways that we may be messing up difficult conversations that we're not even aware of?
Oh man, I hope we have like a few hours to go over because I'm going to start from the top of the list and it's going to take me some time. So here we go. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of ways that we can mess up communication and conversations and relationships. There's a lot of ways. I'm going to name just a few that kind of come to mind at the beginning, okay? There are some tendencies that we have that are not helpful when it comes to communication. One thing that I think is the most common and is the easiest to kind of remove is this idea of blame. Blame does not help relationships. It really doesn't. I just don't think that there's ever a scenario where blame helps. I could be wrong. And I will invite you and our listeners to consider that blame is never, ever really helpful for a situation. Okay, it brings up feelings of guilt and shame and fear of judgment or fear of being punished for being wrong and bad and all the kind of things that no human really wants to experience in their life. So blame is not helpful. If you're noticing blame, I would say move away from that. Instead, another way to look at blame is to think about contribution. How did they contribute and how did I contribute? What didn't I say? What warnings didn't I give? What instructions did I miss? By taking on more of that responsibility, less of the blame, more contribution, that would make a huge difference. So that's one thing I commonly see. And again, I fall into that trap all the time.